I would love for us to kind of catch up for like where we were at coming into last week. And this week, what we're going to be talking about is I think it's what to do if you have no time. You're going to win by letting things fail. It's what to do if you have no time. You have to win by letting things fail. As it's going to be a topic today. Last week we talked about what to do if you have no energy. And Gina, let's do like a little kickoff here of like sharing about how things went. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So last week we had a lot of discussions about ways to re-energize yourself, revitalize yourself in whether we do it through acknowledgement of yourself and others, whether we do it through releasing and letting go of things that don't serve you, also known as forgiveness. What else did we say, Scott? There were some other things that we did. Those are the two that come top of mind to me.
We started using some like acknowledgements, like getting to highlights, getting into gratitude as like
gratitude,
to help like rebuild some of that energy. I think we also talked a little bit about like how to use acknowledgements for yourself to give yourself that back. What do you have that you don't need to wait for other people to give you recognition for the things that you're doing that you know are in line with your path and what you know you need to be doing, and that you can also give acknowledgements to other people. It's just an easy way of kind of giving them a little bit of love, right? Give them a little bit of feel good. And that whenever we were feeling down, we might think we're feeling low energy. One of the ways that we can build our energy is being acknowledging of other people, because it's just a human kind of condition that when we acknowledge other people, they turn around and want to acknowledge us back. And so those deeper those acknowledgements get, the bigger they come back in return. And building those strong human relationships give us that level of network of support, and overall just the energy of other people helps us buoy ourselves in times when we might be inside that low energy. I'm really curious to see if anybody's had any interesting experiences with trying out any of these tools over the last week.
Yeah, that's what I want to know, because one of the reasons that I was not remembering what they all were is because in times when I'm in my growth period, which it's continuous growing, I have certain go-tos. And right now I'm really into the releasing and letting go through journaling, and then also just the gratitude. So I tend to go towards two of them at a time. But I'm curious, we're each at different places and paths in our life. We have different things that resonate with us. So who would love to share with us what any of those techniques, or if you have another one that we didn't talk about last week that you used when you found yourself in times of like feeling no energy or feeling burned out or whatever? Does anybody have any insights they would like to share and any experience with how they used any of these tools? Connie, shorten your time horizons. Oh, can you come on? Are you in a place where you can come on and tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I don't want to start my video because I'm sure Scott does not want to see my hair today.
Oh, your hair is always great. Get out of here. You know, it's fun.
But I learned this technique in reading the memoirs of a soldier who described the World War II Bataan Death March. And what he said was he didn't think about when he was going to get out of this. He thought, I'm going to make it to that next tree. I'm going to make it to that next post. I'm going to make it to, that next rock. So he shortened his time horizons down very severely. So he never thought about getting out of this. He never thought, how am I going to survive this? He thought, I'm going to make it to the next XYZ.
Yeah, which sounds like that sounds like the highlights, or putting it in like the successes. Like, I'll know this is successful when I get to this, and putting it in shorter time fences, something like that.
Yeah, and whatever we have to do, if we only have to do it one day at a time, we can get through just about anything. So I found that I'm really stressed that shortening my time horizons and only working on the next right thing really is very effective.
Awesome. Perfect. So that focus on what you can achieve, getting the achievement. When you get the achievement, it gives you the bump in energy, and it takes away the stress. That's awesome. Thank you, Connie. Who else? Who else would like to share? Anybody else try anything out? Maybe nobody was stressed last week.
Oh,
That's
Leah
even
raised
better.
her hand.
Oh, there you go, Leah.
And I'll give it up. I have a little journal, the little cheap notebook that someone else I had learned from taught me that, it's kind of a daily thing. You can check in. If you do it every day, it's great. If you don't, you don't. But each day is one sheet. You put the date. You write. Start with first like feeling. So like acknowledge, how am I feeling? Do I feel stressed or am I happy and relaxed? So just write how you feel. What's your intention? Set intention for your day based on what you just said, how you feel. And a little section for gratitude. Take 2 minutes to write a couple sentences. What makes you feel good? Like just shift your focus and be grateful for whatever couple of items. Then an affirmation, just whatever comes to your mind that you want to have some positive affirmation for the day. So I know it sounds a little like new world-ish, but it's nice. It's a good way to start the day, and you could spend 1 minute, you could spend 10 minutes.
Absolutely.
You literally could do it in a minute if you just want to get something off your chest and sort of set an intention and kind of get the ball rolling for the day, especially if you take a second, let me look at something I'm grateful for. And then an affirmation for the day could be like, I know I'm going to do great at my interview or whatever the heck it is. And,
Yep.
Put that in your head.
Absolutely. So starting the day off with that, I love that. And then, and I love the fact that you have a little sheet that you use. One of the things that I want to encourage us all, that same exercise that Leah talked about, that you can do at the beginning of the day, you can also do at the moment that you start to feel that whatever that angst, that frustration, that burnout, whatever happening, you can do the same thing. You can write it down or you can do it in your head at the moment that you start feeling it. Because we always, like, whether we recognize it or not, I know I have tells as to when I'm about to go into that, you're about to burn out, you're about to stress out. And when I do that, I can quickly now shift to, I do a lot of this in my head now because I've done it so long that, okay, hang on, Gina, look back. What did you do? What did you achieve? What have you been successful for? What's that negative thought that you need to let go of that's stopping you from moving forward? So what's your intention? We can do that in just a very short order, and it shifts the energy just like that. It does, as Leah said, some of this does sound woo, but I'm telling you, the woo works when you figure out how to make it practical every single time. It's just, and now, as Scott was sharing last week, a lot of this is in the neuroscience. It's actually physically making changes in your brain that is going through your body. So it's extremely powerful. And it's just like anything else, making a habit, go to what works best for you. But it's really being intentional about choosing which one works for you and what situation. There's different things I pull out in different situations once you get comfortable with the tools. And that's what this is all about, introducing you to the tools, helping you play around with them, get comfortable with them. So then you know which tools out of your toolbox to use to help you through any situation to be your, highest and best. Anyway, thank you, Leah. Anybody else have anything to share? Charlie.
Good morning.
Hey.
I was trying to keep it on silent because all my chickens are going off over here. But one of the things that I did for years, actually for several decades, was I learned critical path method, for putting together scheduling and all that, because I was in contracting and in construction, and time is money, all of that, right? But what ended up happening over the years was that same mentality that I learned early on in building a critical path Gantt chart, basically, right? It allowed me to interface all the other personal sides of my life into what was going on the business side, not only breaking everything down from a, understanding a budgetary standpoint for work and construction and how to get something rolled out in a project, but when I started to look at, okay, how do I interface my life into this, right? Because this is the work side, but I got all these other things that kick in. And of course, my children were being born, I got married, et cetera, et cetera. So having the aspects of journaling really made a humongous difference. And I never used to like to write. I mean, I can write and, you know, all that. I did that for years, but I never used to like to do that until I started doing it with that purpose. Because now I started looking for things to, you know, be focused on more. How could I adjust this in my life and adjust that in my life? So over the course of years of working on this and then interfacing with that, what it did was it allowed me to work out my timing on my schedules, so that because we can't, that's the one thing that I found, of course, that we can never change is time. You can only control what's within it. Yeah. So anyway, I found that to be really effective. And that's what stuck to me all these years. Whether I phased down in work or increased in work, it's always kept me on that same focal point. So, you know, I appreciate so much of what you guys are bringing to the table with the details, because now I'm interfacing all that into the mix as well, too.
Yep. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for that sharing, Scott. I think we're ready to turn it over to you for hearing how we move forward by failing. How's that?
How do you win by failing, right? How are we going to do that? So let's just get a quick touch point here. I'd love to just hear some thoughts in here. When you guys hear that idea of winning by failing, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? It's what does that mean? You know, Charlie, what does that mean to you when you hear those words winning by failing? How is that possible? What could that possibly mean?
Well, I think for me, one of the most valuable things is being able to feel accomplished. You know, when you connect with individuals, or when you're doing something on a project. I just noticed Connie saying falling forward or failing forward, right? It's true in that in my daily connections, what I try to do is always take another step forward in something positive, whether it's connecting with somebody to talk about a project or connecting with or completing a task, but it's always trying to move it forward. Because I'm constantly, you know, facing the challenges. I
want to retarget, buddy, because we're talking about here. So Connie's message here is failing forward. It's hey, what did we learn, right? I think what I hear you describing is here's all the things that I do that work well for me. And what I want to target in on is this key idea, right? Of how does winning by letting things fail? When would saying hey, that failed, but somehow I won, because that's a really unintuitive concept. Right? Right. So I was just wondering, when you hear those words, how does that hit you emotionally? Is that hit you whoa, that seems strange? Or is that oh no, that's something that seems really intuitive to me?
Well, I think you're right in the intuitive part, because I got to step back and reflect on what just happened to determine, was that good or not good? Because
okay. So it sounds like you're thinking a little bit like Connie's thinking, right? Where it's hey, forward, what did we learn from here? That's awesome. Right. Who else has an idea in here about what would winning by letting things fail mean to you? Leah, what do you got?
A couple of years ago, my little one came home from school and said they taught him that fail means first attempt in learning. And I have found so many times that when something goes wrong, there's something bigger that was meant to be, or it's just, you know, in trading and investing, sometimes you're either learning or earning or learning. So it became more intuitive to me to say that sometimes making a mistake, I mean, hopefully you don't lose your whole house over that mistake, but it's almost like an opportunity. And, you know, instead of freaking out, take a deep breath and figure out what you learned from it, and maybe you can even do better.
Excellent. Cool. So it sounds like we have some communal understanding by winning. The win by letting things fail is around a concept of accepting of whatever happened here being as the learning opportunity for us. And we would adopt that kind of thinking perhaps because we want to remove judgment from ourselves and from the situation about what happened here. And then removing judgment removes the zapper from us. So that's how we can empower ourselves to continue moving forward. Julie, I saw you raise your hand. Did you have an idea you wanted to share about that?
I think there is another big part is that you are building emotional strength when you are failing, because then you're not having a big ego. You understand there are lots of things that's not within your control. However, even though there are a lot of adversity, there are lots of difficulties, then you still try hard to achieve what you want. So that's a state of emotional strength. You're not being hit so hard by those failures, and you still build up your confidence and move forward.
Awesome, Julie. So I heard a little tweak in what you were expressing here. What I heard was that it says that specifically it was like, hey, that thing might have failed that I was trying to do, but something else great might have happened because of that into it. So to me, that kind of sounds like that idea of like, we accept whatever happens to us as perfect. Whatever's going on in the world, whatever the things that whatever occurred, our judgments of good or bad are really short-sighted. That we can accept the fact that whatever's happening right now is perfect, and accept that something better is going to happen because of this thing. And we hold open that possibility of that being how it's going to happen. I might not see it yet. It might be outside of how I can understand how that thing could be true. But maybe if we're able to accept the fact that, hey, this was perfect, something else is great is going to happen because of this, we might be able to have an easier life, an easier way of moving through it with less judgment and criticism about whatever's going on. Reminds me of a story actually that I recently heard about a man who he was a man who won a car in a lottery. He won a brand new car, beautiful car. And all of his neighbors came over to him and they said, "Aren't you so excited to win that car? Isn't this the greatest thing that's ever happened to you?" And he said, "We'll see." And then, fast forward 2 months later, his son actually is driving the car. And the car gets into a horrible wreck. And it was the only car they had. And his son died. And everybody said, "Oh my God, isn't that the worst thing that's ever happened to you in your entire life?" And he said, "Well, we'll see." But it turned out that his son actually had some special, was a donor for the leader of the country who was fighting through a war that they were engaged in and fighting off some of the people that were going to come into their country, and that the son's organs went to that leader to be able to support that leader to continue to live to fight off the country. And they said, "Well, isn't that the greatest thing that's ever happened? I mean, you can't believe that your son in dying actually went to go support that leader." And he said, "Well, we'll see." Go into it. So this man lived a life that was different. No matter what was occurring, he removed himself from the good or the bad of what was happening and said, "Listen, this is just what is, and we're going to move forward through it, whatever that's going to be." And so it's an illustrative story to be able to, I think, to underline a little bit of what Julie was talking to us about here. And guys, I want to commend you. As you know, everything that we do here inside of Royal Life has two parts to it. We have the right hand side. This is our right brain, this emotional intelligence side of ourselves. And I've been hearing some great ideas so far today that are inside of that place. How to remove ourselves from judgment of what's going on, how to accept life as being perfect, no matter what is occurring with us, occurring around us. And as you know, part of what we do is also focusing on the left-hand side, that left brain, that type A part of us, right? So of course, we want to be able to live our lives in a judgment-free zone, because all the judgments that we have turn out to be the zappers. They draw out the energy from us, and they keep us from being able to move forward. It's also important, I think, that we can harness that energy to be able to find out what things are we actually okay not working out. We might have wanted them to work out, but we're okay with them not working out. And how do we make that determination? In a world and in a time and in a business when we feel like there is so much to do, that we oftentimes can feel overwhelmed and oftentimes feel like we can't really get it all done. and how that can lead us back down a spiral into self-criticism, judgment, proving to ourselves that we really aren't good enough because I can see all the things that I'm not good at. Whatever that might be for you, right? Whatever rabbit trail of thinking that leads to you. So what I'd like to go ahead, guys, is go ahead and turn into our journals here. And I'd like to be able to go through, guys, just here as a group of what are all of the things that we would need to do in a given day to say that, hey, this is in a given day, you know, here are the things that we would have. So like in an instance, this could be something like you would have with like the Ivy Lee method that we talked about in prior weeks, to be able to think about what are all of the tasks that we would want to have. And I just want to go ahead and take a minute and start to go through from the beginning of our day to the end. Just take a few minutes and get down what are all of the things that we're going to need to do. You know, maybe not put on your socks, right? Make these like real things, you know, that we would actually want to accomplish throughout the day, right? So I'm going to go ahead and switch my camera around so that way I can take some notes for what it is that we all are coming up with here. And so like kicking off the day, I would start like my number one thing kicking off the day here too. What's the number one thing I do? I said, I need to eat a healthy breakfast. So wow, eating a healthy breakfast is going to be important for me today. Yeah, cool. After I eat a healthy breakfast, Julie, what's the next thing that's going to be an important thing for me to do that day?
I typically use the eat the frog method by Brian Tracy. So in the morning, you have the most energy and get the most difficult task done. So for example, cold calling, that's probably very hard task. And I try to get it done in the morning. So later on, I can do things that I feel more relaxed and doesn't cost a lot of energy.
Okay, so we'll put in here, make 10 cold calls. Just something representative saying, hey, that's going to be my frog. I'm going to get through my 10 cold calls for the day. Robert, what am I going to do next in my day that's important?
Probably spend some time developing relationships with family members.
Spend time with family. Yeah. Family and the kids. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. How much time are we going to spend with the family and the kids if we were going to make this a SMART goal, Robert?
Probably, I'd say an hour.
1 hour. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. What am I going to do next, Leah? In my day here. I'm going to start by eating breakfast. I'm going to make the 10 cold calls. I'm going to spend an hour with the family. And then what do I got? I'm going to work out. How long am I going to work out?
Maybe 40 minutes and then, you know, shower and change, whatever. So you kind of maybe need an hour. Maybe you need a snack in there, kind of whatever.
So maybe an hour if you're feeling snacky.
Kind of realistically with everything involved with that is maybe an hour for.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Cool. What am I going to do next, Gina? After I do these and I get my workout in, what comes next?
I'm going to check my emails and follow up on emails.
So check email and follow up. Okay, cool. And what's going to come next? So now I'm checking my emails and follow-ups. I probably will come in here and say, hey, I have all my meetings for the day. And then I got my project work. So I got my meetings and then I got, say, something here. I need to write a sales script. You know, I need to, I know that my financial is really important to me. So I have my sales script. I also know here I need to check with my accountant, you know, about what's going on with my money and how are we doing for this month. Then I know that I have my some of my spiritual health. So I said, well, cool. Some of my spiritual health, I'm going to make sure that I want to meditate here too throughout the day. I also know that I need to drink a gallon of water because I knew that I was doing 75 hard, and I know that drinking a gallon of water is one of the ways that I'm going to try to start working my way towards being able to get there. Oh shoot, I remembered here too. I also need to I need to read for 30 minutes or like at least 10 pages out of a book, because I know my intellectual development is actually super key for me here. I also know that, oh, you know what? I got to buy a gift for grandma. Gift for grandma has got to be on the list here because grandma's birthday is just coming up. And, you know, grandma's loved me my entire life. So wouldn't that be super sad if I didn't go ahead and buy grandma a gift today? But I actually don't know what grandma's gift needs to be. So actually I need to change this. I need to first research what grandma's gift is, and then I have to go buy that gift. And then I need to wrap it. And well, actually, and then her birthday, this is actually all it needs to happen by tomorrow. And then and then I got to go grocery shopping because we are out of groceries there at the house, and the kids are going to want to eat some of that mac and cheese tonight. So I better make sure I go ahead and get that. So you can see here how we start to develop these monster lists. And this is what goes on in our head. Yeah. And how overwhelming this would be to be able to try to figure out, what do I do? And holy smokes, when I look at this, aren't all of these important? I mean, what am I going to do? Tell grandma I don't love her by not buying her a gift? You know? Am I not going to worry about my money? Am I not going to worry about my spiritual health? Am I not going to worry about the water that I need to drink? I mean, it's water, for Christ's sakes. I mean, everybody needs to drink water. How is water not important? Right? So the question is how do I know which one of these to let fail? It's not possible for me to do this. I have to be willing to let some of these things fail. So how do I know what are the important things to let fail? Well, luckily, you become in Royal Life. So and we got some tools about how to figure that out. So remember we started here with our Ivy method of saying, hey, just list out all of the things that you know you need to do. And Ivy method would say, hey, just pick 6. What are going to be your top 6 out of like your list of the things that you know you need to do? Yeah. What you can do is start to use this tool that we have here and these boxes. Last week, we talked about all of these, right? How to build the energy. This week, when we talk about these are all task items. Task items go into this box, and I would say potentially here as well, in a little bit different way. Okay. So
yeah, Scott, which page are you on?
Yeah, this is page 42. So this is for this week on March 7th here out of my demo journal.
Yep.
So what we could do is look at our list that we have here and say, well, great. What are my key considerations off of this list? And I have 3 buckets. Here are my buckets. Goal for the week. These are my bigs. Or my rocks, depending how you want to look at them. I got my goals for the week. So those are my big things and my rocks. I got my daily to do. I'm going to call these my smalls. And then I got my habits. And these are my everyday behavior. All right. So when I look back at so if you can see in here on our tracker that we have, these are your smalls, these are your bigs, and these are your habits. So when I look back at my list from here, I can start to then sort, where do these need to go? Yeah. So this whole buy a gift for grandma, I have to research the gift. then I got to drive to the store. Then I got to go wrap that gift. And then I got to go put it in the mail to be able to get it back to grandma. And I got to get all that. And I got to get all that done. It's a multi-step kind of process of what needs to happen with that. Where would that fit? Would that be a new habit? Would that be like a small to do today? Or does that feel like something that's like, man, there's going to be quite a few things I actually have to figure out around this gift for grandma? Leah, where does it fit for you?
I think it's a big, and then each step is a small. I mean, hopefully it's not all in one day, but maybe, You know, the research is Sunday, the purchase is Monday, and Tuesday you bring it to the post office.
So here I could do research, buy, and ship. Notice I don't need a lot of words here. I know what these words are referring to. I know they're referring to grandma because it's just not that hard for me to keep track of. So I don't need a big sentence, you know, just need a blank that says, cool, on Sunday, I'm agreeing that I'm committing to myself and agreeing to myself. And I'm going to commit to, I'm going to research it on Sunday. Then on Monday, I'm going to buy it. And Tuesday, I'm going to ship it. Now, so now we got gift for grandma in here. What about I got one of them in here about reading for 30 minutes or 10 pages, whatever comes faster for me into it. Julie, where do you see that like reading for 30 minutes or 10 pages is going to fall? Inside of our piece, big or smaller?
Those are habits.
Cool. Where do we want to put it? Do we want to put it in the morning or in the evening?
I would put it in the evening.
All right. Julie's having us do our reading in the evening here. So when I did my reading and I did it here, like on Sunday in the evening, I was a good boy. I did my reading and I'm going to put an X in my box here. That's going to let me know that I actually did it here on Sunday. And if I did it on Monday too, then I would check off Monday as well too. And then I can keep track of how well am I doing using my journal of doing this new behavior that I'm looking for into here. Cool. What about my grocery shopping? Where does grocery shopping need to fall? Where would grocery shopping fall for you, Robert? Would it be a big, a small, or a habit?
It would be one of those ones I delegate.
Okay, let's say you couldn't delegate it. All right, well, we could take a delegate, fine. So now we have a new cast called I Need to Delegate Grocery Shopping. Is that a big or a small or a habit?
Probably a habit. It just happens automatically every week. On Monday, order online, gets delivered.
Cool. I'm going to shift it, Robert, here into a small for you.
Okay.
Because habits are things we must do every day. Habits are things that are so critical that I must do this thing called reading every day because I'm trying to change my behavior around reading.
Fair enough.
Right? That comes into it, okay? So for Robert said, cool, that's going to be on Monday for one of my top 3 to-dos here on Monday. So this is when I'm going to do grocery. Now, Robert has grocery as a small. How could grocery be a big? Robert has a small because he's delegating somebody else to go buy his groceries. How could groceries actually be a big item? Charlie, what comes to mind for you when you think about groceries? Actually, how would grocery shopping be a big item and not a small like Robert has that here?
Well, I think it depends on your frequency of shopping and your health. So, you know, if you're focusing on health as a big item, right? Then you got to make sure you got fresh every day. That's one thing. But the other part is, if your frequency of shopping is scheduled at every 2 weeks or whatever, I mean, you got some big lists you got to follow.
Yeah. So it could be something like grocery shopping could be a big, if I said this is like nutrition specific.
Correct.
Like I'm going to eat nutrition specific food, right?
Right.
Like, oh man, it's not just buying groceries. I need to go find out who are all the organic farmers that are in the area. And then I want to know where my beef is going to come from. So I'm going to source that separately. And then I need to know, how is it actually going to get to the house? Because, we don't have refrigerators for some reason. And so how am I going to keep the food cool? So this can turn into like a big scope for us here, even though with the way Robert's doing groceries and food, it actually turns into a small task. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So then let's go ahead and find another one on here. I almost gave away the show there. What about spending time with the family and the kids? Is that a top goal for the week? Is that a small to do for the day, or is that a habit in the morning or the evening that we want to do?
That's a habit you have to do every day.
Cool. Are we going to do it in the morning or the evening?
Evening, because
Good.
morning they're at school.
All right. Yeah. Morning habits, getting ready for school. Yeah. All right. So evening is kid time. And maybe I forgot to do kid time on Sunday and Monday, but I remembered to do it on Tuesday and Thursday of this week, right? As I went through the week, I would just check the box of like, hey, when did I remember to do kid time? Right? Now, this could key off some really interesting things for you that I want to show you quick, because I think everybody's getting the idea here, right? That my morning habit here this could be my breakfast piece that we talked about here, right? My number one here, eat a healthy breakfast. Okay, cool. Well, now breakfast is now part of my morning habit. And man, I'm good on breakfast because breakfast is how I start my day. So I'm really solid on it. And I also want to key off before we jump to the next concept is that you can see here that the reviews of goals, affirmations, and your visualizations is hard written into the journal, because this is the one thing that we know that if you do it, will have the greatest possible impact. Is going back and reviewing from the prior sheet that you have here, what are your top goals that you have? What are your affirmations and visualizations, and keeping these top of mind. In an ideal world, these things, if I asked you them, you would be able to just rattle them off one after the other, after the other, after the other, because they're so top of mind for you about what is the most important things for me to get done into it and pursue these goals. Now, when we look at this list here, what we're going to find if we kept going through the exercise and we had more time, right? If we were in an all-day seminar, right? Is that this list can't all fit inside of the rules of how many things are we allowed to do. So inherently, there's things in here that we're just not going to do. I'd say, well, heck, I'm just not going to be able to do that sales script. It's just not going to happen. It doesn't fit inside of the goals because I have other things here and I don't have the boxes for it. So you can use your task list that you have in the overall flow, and you can start to break them down into a tool set that's like this. And when you break it down into this type of format, you'll start to see a few things. One you'll start to see is like, what is the absolutely critical things that I must do in the morning and each evening to hold myself accountable for? Because I understand that actually me as a human being through the world, my baseline behaviors are actually my fundamental driver of everything else that's going to happen with the success and the financial success that I'm looking for. It's also going to say, great, out of all of the things that you might want to get done this week, what are the absolutely critical things? Because you're only allowed to accomplish a few. So what are the actually truly critical that must get done? Not that I'm hoping to get done, but they must get done for this week to be successful. And then in pursuit of these goals for the week, what are the most important items that must get done for the day? And I'll tell you guys anecdotally, because I've led a number of team members through this process before. You would think, how in the world can I not get 3 things done? How is that? Of course I get 3 things done. I'm getting 1,000 things done, Scott. You have no idea how many things I'm getting done. I'm microtasking and I'm multitasking. I'm sending out somebody else to do my grocery shopping for me. You have no idea how many things that I get done in a day. There's no way I can't get the 3 things done. And I'll tell you, it's the hardest thing to do that I've found is getting the 3. If the weekly goals, easier. Habits, easier into it. The 3 things are the hardest thing to do. And the reason why I believe it is because if the 3 things were easy, you would already have done them. So your top 3, the things that you identify that you need to have done that day, will intuitively be the things that are the most difficult for you to do. The most energy has to get put into it for it to be able to be accomplished. And so I would when you're doing this exercise, be cognizant of that, right? Be cognizant of the fact of, hey, am I really hitting all of my top 3? And then when you review as part of what we do, as part of your habit here, right? Into the reviewing your goals, affirmations, and visualizations. This is when you take the time to look at, hey, how well am I doing on my weekly goal accomplishment? Can I check this one off that I got the grandma gift situation done? And did I actually do my top 3 for Monday? Or did what happen is I actually didn't do any of my top 3 for Monday. Instead, I got busy with meetings and a bunch of other stuff that I needed to do. And then, actually, like, my mom called me, and then my brother's car broke down. And so I actually didn't get my top 3 done for the day. So I just kept pushing it over and over and over and over throughout the entire week. Because this, I'll tell you, is the norm. This is what the norm is. Even for highly successful, highly motivated people, you'll find your top 3 and you'll just keep pushing them from one day to the next day to the next day. And then you'll wonder, and then you'll get to the end of the week and you're like, well, I only got 2 out of my 5 goals done. And like, well, why did that happen? It's like, well, because I didn't get my top 3. My top 3 didn't happen. If my top 3 didn't happen, then how am I supposed to be able to hit those weekly goals? Now, what this is going to do is this is going to bring into your world a high level of awareness about what it is that you're able to do and not able to do, right? What is it that what are the true limitations of what can I execute and accomplish on a daily basis into it? The natural inclination will go into be falling into a place of self-judgment. Why can't I do this? I mean, it's not that hard. Why can't I do it? Blah, blah, blah. All of the things that we talked about in the very beginning today of where does that lead us, right? And and as Julie and you all pointed out earlier, is that the awareness is amazing. The tool will give us the awareness that we're looking for. It'll give us the awareness and accountability that we're looking for. And then we need to combine that awareness with the acceptance of everything is perfect. This is actually all happening exactly how it needs to be for where I'm at right now. And if I'm off course of where I want to go, then the move is just to bring it back on course. If you keep pushing from one day to the next day to the next day, and you're like, well, God, Scott told me that was going to happen. And man, I should be better. I should be better, right? Will be the dialogue that goes into your mind. You say, great. Actually, I shouldn't be better. I'm exactly the person and exactly the skill sets of where I need to be right now. And I'm going to move in a direction of me being able to knock off my top 3 to-do items each day. I'm going to move in a direction that allows me to be able to set habits that I can actually do each morning and each evening. And I got to tell you, man, when you're starting out, that habit or that one to do, depending on who you are, where you're at, the most successful people that I've ever worked with and coached, when they wanted health and they were struggling with it for years, and they're like, I've done all the diets and I've done all the workouts and I've paid tens of thousands of dollars to personal trainers. And I was like, great, do a push-up one day, every day for 30 days for the month, and make that your morning habit. See if you can do it. And what we found out by going through that process is that it wasn't the workout, right? It wasn't the difficulty of the workout. It only takes 10 seconds to do a push-up, but that push-up was still difficult because it was flexing the skill of like, that's the new thing I have to go do. So the tool will tell you, here's what the limitations are of what you can do. You'll have to work with your mind about how to accept that as being exactly where it needs to be. And then you can use that awareness to be able to say, great, let me calibrate goals. Let me calibrate the things that I want to do into things that are actually achievable for me. Instead of the things I wish were achievable for me, what is actually achievable for me? And when you start to do that, your internal confidence builds because you know exactly what are the expectations you should be setting of yourself. Just like if you had an employee, how you need to set clear expectations of what you expect out of them. In this process, you're setting the clear, achievable expectations for yourself. And you're using the tool, the planner, to be able to give you the awareness of what are those reasonable expectations. So I was wondering, Leah, what comes up for you when you think about setting lofty goals or setting those goals and not meeting those goals? What happens to you internally when you don't meet your own expectations of what you think that you should be able to do for a week? What is that dialogue that goes on in your head?
It's that deep breath out. Just, you feel a little agitated with yourself. Maybe you feel a little, I don't want to use the word like you're a failure, but maybe you feel a little self-judgment and annoyed with yourself, or I can do better kind of mentality. Yeah,
it's like the I can do better mentality, right? And that's that drain, that self-judgment that kind of runs in there. So as we move towards being able to set those reasonable expectations of ourselves, what we might also find is that we're actually able to achieve more when we start looking at these areas of our lives, inside of our monthly goals, inside of our quarterly goals of what's happening. Because once I can get it dialed in of what I can actually do and what can I actually achieve on the week, now I can dial in on what is it that I can really get on a longer time scale, and what kinds of things can I really hold myself accountable for.
Hey, Scott, we have a question in the chat from Sean. What if your top 3 shift consistently?
Yeah, if your top 3 are shifting consistently for you, Sean, what that means is that you're not clear on what you want.
Yeah, your top 3 weren't really your top 3.
What probably happened, Sean, is that what you did is you jumped to here, right? You jumped to the to-do items. And you said, cool, well, the way I'm going to win is I'm just going to get a bunch of shit done. I'm just going to start knocking things off the list, right? And then whatever comes up in life, I now have a new thing that I'm going after. So I'm going to change that here. And then, by the way, something else popped here. So I'm going to come here, and that's going to be a top 3. The reason why these are top 3s is because they're only 3 things, right? If you're only going to commit to 3 things, those have to stay in line with you. So what I would say is, if you find that they're constantly shifting, go back into this process. Go back into your fishes. Find out what's really going on that you need to focus on in these different areas of your life. Then work to create through the vision statements that we talked about earlier, which was, what do I want out of my financial life? What do I want out of my intellectual life? Develop that clear vision of where you're going, and then break it down into the quarterly goals, monthly goals, and then down into your daily. Then what you'll find is, after you do all of that, Sean, and I know you get this because I saw your bingo pop up in the chat. But after you do all of this in the process that we've been laying out for you so far, what'll happen over time is you'll find that, hey, I now have a new awareness of what are the habits that are driving my behaviors that I really want, and what are the things I'm actually able to do on a weekly and a daily basis. So maybe what I need to do is go back up to here and then realign what my goals are going to be to say, how fast can I accomplish something on my way to this vision? So the vision drives down to quarterly goals, which drives down to execution. What I learned about execution was either I can accomplish more or I can accomplish less than I thought. Then I'll go back and then readjust my monthly and quarterly goals to make sure that I'm still in line with achieving this vision. And the game of life, guys, is happy, joyous, amazing, and energetic, as long as you're making progress towards this vision in a way that your internal self knows is predictable and achievable. If you want happiness and peace in your life, if those are things that resonate for you, that says, that is what I'm going after, then it's the pursuit of these things in the reasonable fashion that we've talked about here is the way that you're able to get that on a consistent basis. It's not about absolute achievement. if what you're looking for is the experience in your life is happiness or peace. It's about, am I clear about what do I want? Can I get that down into what it is that I need to do today so I can then celebrate the fact that I actually did that for myself today by using these acknowledgements, the forgiveness, the highlights, and the gratitude? Can I then readjust what it is I need to be doing on a weekly, daily basis, or changing my behaviors in the morning and the evening as part of our habits, recalibrating those into my monthly and weekly goals, and then making sure that those are still lining up with the overall vision of what it is that I'm looking to improve in my life. And as long as you're on the path is the victory. The path is the state, the emotional state that you're trying to get to. It's not about the objective achievement. Cool. We got just a few minutes left, guys. So I just wanted to take any questions or any awarenesses that people have about what's come up for them from this discussion today.
So Scott, this is Alex. I've got a new laptop, so I have an issue with my video, so it's not coming across. Okay, so let me just say this. I realized that if you go back last week, right, and do an inventory of what you actually did on all the days for that entire week. If not, you can go back another week to give you an idea exactly where you need to, where you spend your time on. For example, for me, I've got my daily routine down pat, right? Starting with my prayers, my mantra, and checking my text, looking at the market. This is before I have my breakfast and take my meds. And then look at your schedule. So we all have our routine. But the real key is, what do we do throughout that day relative to going back to the fishes, going back to the core values, and utilizing the Eisenhower box. That awareness and that perspective is what I find myself coming back over and over again. Now, what I said last week, because I have multiple responsibilities, and some of them are critical to prioritize all of that. But that said, so I'm caught in this place where I'm aware of it, but it's really the part of executing on it, right? So I realized when it was top of mind that in order for me to actually move towards those top 3 things that I need to accomplish, that while it's in my mind, I execute on it, and I feel like I got that done. How many times I did that last week? Maybe 1 time, Scott, as opposed to something that's consistent. That's the reality. That
hey, baby, look at that. 1 time more than you were doing it before, and that's badass. Celebrate the shit out of that, dude. That's fantastic. You know what I'm saying, Alex?
Yes, I do. I do.
You know
I acknowledge it. I acknowledge it.
You slipped right into a judgment of yourself of like, well, as I didn't do it before. So I think it's just great, man. I think it's awesome that your awareness is so keen on like how you're going into it. So share with me a little bit, Alex, like when we talk about these things and how they work together today, tell me about like, how does that relate to you differently hearing it this week versus last week?
Well, it realized that throughout the day, right? Just like what I said, you can go back and figure out to see what's most productive, whether it's done in the morning per Julie or doing what's hard, what other people do. But at the end of the day, what did I do that is geared towards those 3 specific goals I have for the 3 months, for the 1 month, right? Did I take that action? That awareness is really coming home, right? Because everything else is, I didn't say everything else. A lot of things are important, right? Whether it's business or family, you do that anyway as a matter of routine. Whether we go through the routine or the mantra or techniques that you have, but it is that action that you do at that particular day that I think makes a key difference towards where you need to go. And that awareness is becoming more and more acute, that I really need to start to include that on my list of things that I need to do for the week, being awesome, ahead of it.
That's a beautiful thing. Thanks, Alex, for sharing that, man. Thanks for sharing your awareness about like how you want to being able to be more acutely on top of what it is you're doing. What are you prioritizing? Why is that important to you? How is that relating into the bigger picture? precisely about what it is that you're actually trying to build. Cool. Who else had an awareness here, guys? We have time for one more share, and then we have to break for the day. Julie, go ahead.
Scott, what I got from today's session is the past is the victory. I really love it, because I think by doing all of the things you're teaching us, we're focusing on our action, not the result, because we cannot control the result, but we can control the action. And the most important thing is the happiness and the peace we get from doing this daily and weekly. So I really appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Julie, for that share. Awesome. The path is the victory. I love it. Reminds me of what Connie said. It's like every day, if it's one day at a time, right? One day at a time, anything is accomplishable into it. And that's our win for it. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for coming here today. This isn't possible for me to be able to have the experience of being able to do the things that I do without all of you coming into the group. It's my pleasure. It's my joy to be able to do this. I know as well for Gina into it. So thank you guys so much for coming back week after week to be able to share in this experience with me and Gina and each other. And that it's really you and coming back that makes everything possible. So I applaud you for the effort and the commitment that you have into creating the best life that you possibly can for yourself and becoming the best version of yourself through this type of work and making you to a powerhouse even more so than you already are. Next week, we're going to be talking a little bit about fear of change and what does fear of change actually mean for us. And we're pushing past our comfort zone, which is where we know growth is actually happening. What do we do with those fears? And how can we best address those fears in a way that's going to allow us to be able to perform the actions that we talked about this week even easier? When you can reduce the fear, the workload, that cognitive load that we talked about last week is lower, which makes it easier to do. So we're going to talk again about how fear is one of those zappers, right? How it makes everything more expensive to be able to get done. And so by working on the fear, we can make everything else easier for us. And that's how we're going. Another way we're going to be able to see, hey, great. Well, if I really want to achieve at that high level, if I really want to get all these things done each week before I run out of energy onto it, then let's go ahead and look at some more of that fear looks like. So thank you guys so much. I look forward to seeing you all again next week. I just want to applaud you all. Thank you so much.